Ministers and heads of delegations to please come to the front for the family photo. Thank you very much. I will make sure there's somebody doing it. Okay. Will you let me know when they're here?
Because it's Timmermans, Teresa Rivera, Timmermans and Teresa Rivera.
Okay. Look, I'm very sorry, but I better stay here.
No, of course.
But I'll do it slowly.
Yeah.
Telling us how. Please bring it back. Thank you very much. Sorry for this.
Sorry?
What? Oh no.
Not. Excuse me. We're just waiting for a. We just got to make sure there are a couple of people who should be in the picture.
Not here yet.
Not here. Okay. Yes, I think definitely. Yes.
Okay? Go. That's the safe.
Okay. Just 1 minute. Sorry. Excuse me. Hey. Hello. What do you want me to say?
DJ will stay here in the middle, downstairs, and first.
Are they all compact enough? Do you want me to move in?
I'll stand on this side.
No, I'm okay with it. David, I'm okay with it, but DJ should be stay here in the middle.
Sir, please could I ask you to move slightly into the middle? You're to the left. I do apologize. Perhaps you could just move 2 steps to my right. It's not going to happen.
David, where is DJ?
Let me know when you're happy.
Yeah, where DJ?
DJ's here. Are we still waiting? I'm very sorry. We're just going to have to wait. I really do apologize for this, okay? My apologies. Just go. Elizabeth, can we now go ahead? Okay, let's take the shot. Okay. Okay, fantastic. Okay, let's take the shot.
Look at me, please.
That's a wrap.
Testing. All. Hello? Excellencies, distinguished delegations, ladies and gentlemen, Could I kindly ask you to take your seats so that we can commence with the proceedings? Thank you so much. Delegations, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for taking your seats so that we can start with the proceedings. Thank you. Distinguished delegations, ladies and gentlemen, may I make a final appeal for you all to take your seats so that we can commence with the proceedings. Thank you so much for your understanding. Distinguished delegations, ladies and gentlemen, the session is about to start. Please take your seats. Doors are closed now. Thank you.
Good morning. Everyone, please take your seats. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I would like to welcome you all in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, for the 13th session of the Assembly of the International Renewable Energy Agency. I am Vanessa Interiano, permanent representative to IRENA and ambassador of El Salvador to the United Kingdom. I am presiding over the opening of the 13th session of the Assembly on behalf of Her Excellency, Mrs. Alexandra Gil Tinoco, Minister of Foreign Affairs of El Salvador and President of the 12th Assembly. Under item 1 of the provisional agenda of this session, I declare open the 13th session of the Assembly of IRENA. I would also like to extend my gratitude to the Director General, Mr. Francesco La Camera, and the Secretariat for their continuous assistance during the Presidency of El Salvador, as well as to the host country, the United Arab Emirates, for their hospitality and for facilitating the necessary arrangements towards convening this Assembly session. I would like to invite Her Excellency, Mrs. Alexandra Gil Tinoco, Minister of Foreign Affairs of El Salvador and President of the 12th Assembly, to address the Assembly via a video message in Spanish. Thank you.
Excelentísimo Director General de la Agencia Internacional de Energías Renovables, IRENA, excelentísimos jefes de delegación, señoras y señores. En enero del 2022, El Salvador fue honrado al recibir la presidencia de la 12ª Asamblea de la Agencia Internacional de Energías Renovables, la cual, bajo el lema Transición Energética del compromiso a la acción, puso de relieve la necesidad de adoptar medidas concretas para acelerar la transición hacia un sistema energético más amplio, justo y resistente. Al asumir nuestra presidencia, nos comprometimos a trabajar por un mundo más sostenible y seguro para las generaciones actuales y futuras. Estamos convencidos de que la transición hacia el uso de energías renovables con tecnologías más limpias es una herramienta clave y fundamental para abordar el cambio climático y mitigar sus efectos devastadores. Este impulso que El Salvador ha querido dejar como legado se enmarca en la visión de nuestro presidente Nayib Bukele sobre la vital importancia del sector energético como uno de los pilares para llevar desarrollo a las poblaciones, en particular como una apuesta viable para garantizar que el 100% del consumo de la energía eléctrica sea limpia, renovable y amigable con nuestro medio ambiente. En El Salvador, la Comisión Ejecutiva Hidroeléctrica del Río Lempa, CEL, es la instancia rectora de la energía. La CEL ha demostrado un liderazgo clave en impulsar la innovación y el desarrollo energético hacia la dinamización y el fortalecimiento de este importantísimo sector en mi país. Bajo nuestra presidencia, la CEL ha impulsado acciones y espacios de trabajo multilaterales en el marco de su rol para contribuir activamente al logro de una sociedad más verde y, por ende, sostenible. A un año de haber asumido la presidencia de esta Asamblea, me gustaría destacar algunos logros importantes, como la segunda conferencia de alto nivel de la Alianza Geotérmica Global, que tuvo lugar en San Salvador el 30 de septiembre del 2022, organizada de manera conjunta entre IRENA y el Gobierno de El Salvador, en colaboración con la Asociación Internacional de Geotermia. El Salvador reconoce en el multilateralismo el mecanismo clave y único para abordar los desafíos globales, por lo que en el marco de nuestra presidencia impulsamos el acercamiento y la colaboración entre IRENA y la Organización Marítima Internacional, con el objetivo que ambas organizaciones trabajen conjuntamente en la descarbonización del sector marítimo, uno de los sectores más difíciles de abordar en materia de sostenibilidad energética. Como resultado de propiciar esa alianza, se desarrolló el Foro de Innovación del Sector Marítimo en Londres en septiembre del 2022, en el cual se puso en relieve prácticas innovadoras, seguras y sostenibles en materia de tecnología para acelerar la transición del transporte marítimo internacional hacia la descarbonización. Mi gobierno agradece profundamente la confianza depositada en El Salvador al haber sido designado, junto con Japón, como cofacilitador del marco colaborativo para mejorar el diálogo sobre altas proporciones de energías renovables en los sistemas energéticos. Un espacio que nos permitió compartir experiencias en función de la integración de altas proporciones de energías renovables en los sistemas energéticos. La visión de El Salvador, al apostar por una relación estratégica con IRENA, ha significado la suscripción de un acuerdo orientado a la descarbonización del país, facilitando nuestra participación en la plataforma de financiamiento del acelerador de la transición energética. Con el apoyo de IRENA, El Salvador contará con un centro de excelencia que fortalecerá la operatividad geotérmica y brindará la oportunidad a nacionales y extranjeros de capacitarse en el desarrollo del sistema energético. Como presidencia saliente, El Salvador se siente orgulloso del progreso logrado en el campo de la energía geotérmica, ya que es clave en el proceso de descarbonización de las matrices energéticas de nuestros países. Reiteramos nuestro compromiso con los miembros de la agencia y apostaremos por ampliar aún más nuestra cooperación a donde sea requerida y necesaria. Felicitamos a la India por asumir la presidencia de la 13ª Asamblea de la Agencia Internacional de Energías Renovables y auguramos los mejores éxitos durante su mandato. De igual manera, le reiteramos a este país amigo nuestro total apoyo en las iniciativas que impulse durante su gestión, poniendo a disposición toda la experiencia de nuestro El Salvador en este importante rol. Dejo testimonio de mi agradecimiento a la CEL, a su presidente, mi amigo Daniel Álvarez, y a todo su equipo por todo su arduo trabajo y desempeño durante el 2022, lo que nos permite culminar nuestro ejercicio de la presidencia de IRENA de manera exitosa. Confiamos en el excelente trabajo que CEL continuará realizando a nivel nacional e internacional. En nombre de mi presidente, de mi país, de mi gobierno, agradezco profundamente a IRENA, a su director general, señor Francesco Lacámara, y a los miembros, a todos los miembros de la agencia, por la confianza depositada en nosotros y por el continuo apoyo durante todo este proceso y este periodo. Muchísimas gracias.
Before proceeding, I would like to inform you that media will be present during the proceedings of this Assembly session, with the exception of the administrative and institutional matters and other mandates. I would also like to inform you that in the interest of enhancing transparency and inclusiveness, the open plenary and ministerial meetings of the Assembly will be live-streamed on the IRENA website. On January 15, part of the day will be closed to take up proceedings of the Assembly of an administrative and institutional nature and other mandates. I take it then that the Assembly approves these arrangements. Thank you for your agreement. I now invite the Assembly to turn to item 2 of the provisional agenda, Organization of Work. We will take up item 2A, election of officials. According to the rules of procedure, the Assembly shall designate a president and 4 vice presidents at the end of each session, who will then formally be elected at the next session of the Assembly. The Assembly will recall that at the end of its 12th session in January last year, members designated by acclamation India as president of the 13th session of the Assembly. The rules further provided that at the beginning of each session, members shall confirm the designation and so formally elect the president. At this Assembly session, India is represented by His Excellency Raj Kumar Singh, Cabinet Minister of Power and New and Renewable Energy. Do I take it that the Assembly wishes to elect India as President of the 13th session of the Assembly? I hear no objection. It is so decided. It is my pleasure to declare India, represented by His Excellency Raj Kumar Singh, President of the 13th session of the Assembly. Let me now hand over to the President of the 13th Assembly. Please, Mr. President, join me on the podium. Thank you.
I will give you the young Irish boy.
I would like to thank Her Excellency, Ms. Alexandra Hiltinoco, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of El Salvador, for her work as President of the 12th session of the Assembly. It is my pleasure to carry on this task of presiding over this very important body. Let us continue with the proceedings. I now wish to invite the Assembly to turn to the election of the Vice Presidents of the 13th session of the Assembly, who will form the Bureau and support me during our deliberations. At the end of its 12th session, the Assembly designated Belgium, Indonesia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Zimbabwe as Vice Presidents of the 13th session of the Assembly. Do I take it that the Assembly wishes to elect these members as Vice Presidents of this Assembly session? I see no objection. It is so decided. It is my pleasure to declare Belgium, represented by His Excellency Mr. Philippe Henry, Vice President of the Government of Wallonia and the Minister for Climate, Energy, Mobility and Infrastructures. Indonesia, represented by His Excellency Mr. Arifin Tasrif, the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, represented by Honorable Junior Francis, the Minister of Urban Development, Energy, Airports, Seaports, Grenadine Affairs and Local Government, as well as members of the delegation present in Abu Dhabi, and Zimbabwe, represented by Honorable Jemu Soda, the Minister for Energy and Power Development, as Vice Presidents of the 13th session of the Assembly. I have asked for their support in presiding over certain sessions of this Assembly and to act on behalf of the Presidency as needed. I am looking forward to working closely with the Vice Presidents in conducting the business of this session. I now turn to the appointment of the Rapporteur. Rule 31 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly requires that the President proposes to a member of the Assembly to act as Rapporteur. I wish to inform the Assembly that we had proposed to Canada to act as rapporteur for this session, and I am pleased to inform you that Canada has accepted this responsibility. Do I take it that the Assembly concurs with this proposal? I hear no objection, so decided. It's my pleasure to declare Canada as a rapporteur for the 13th session of the Assembly. I would like to thank Canada, the rapporteur, for accepting this position, and I am looking forward to working with Canada in finalizing the summary report of this session. We would like to thank you all for the trust placed upon us in guiding the deliberations of the 13th session of the Assembly. I am looking forward to our collaboration to ensure a successful outcome of this meeting and working with the Director General, Mr. Francisco Lacamera, and his team. This concludes our consideration of Agenda Item 2A. I now invite the Assembly to take up Agenda Item 2B of the Provisional Agenda, Adoption of the Agenda. The Provisional Agenda of the session is contained in the document A/13/L1. The Provisional Agenda for the coming 2 days contains a number of programmatic, policy, and institutional discussions which are of direct relevance to the ongoing work of the agency, its work program, as well as for its next strategic cycle. Do I take it that the Assembly wishes to adopt the Provisional Agenda as contained in document A/13/L1? I see no objection, so decided. This concludes our consideration of Agenda Item 2B. I now invite the Assembly to take up Agenda Item 2C, Appointment of the Credentials Committee. In accordance with Rule 25 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly, a Credentials Committee shall be appointed at the beginning of each session. It shall consist of 9 members who are appointed by the Assembly on the proposal of the President. Following the expressions of interest received by the 6th of January 2023, I have consulted with the members and I propose to the Assembly to appoint the following as members of the Credentials Committee: Belgium, Colombia, Cuba, Cyprus, Fiji, Mali, Spain, Uganda, United Arab Emirates as members of the Credential Committee. Do I take it that the Assembly concurs with our proposals? I see no objections. So decided. On behalf of the Assembly, I would like to thank the members of the Credentials Committee for making themselves available for this important task. The committee will convene for a meeting today at the lunch break at 1 p.m. in meeting room B2. We shall revert to the matter tomorrow under Agenda Item 14A to consider the report of the Credentials Committee. I would like to remind all the member delegations of the need to present their credentials as soon as possible and before the start of the Credentials Committee meetings. Delegations that are still required to submit credentials may do so at the designated desk of the Secretariat in the registration area at the Manhattan Lounge upstairs. I understand that the Secretariat also stands ready to assist should there be any request for clarification or assistance in this matter. This concludes our consideration of Agenda Item 2C. I now invite the Assembly to take up Agenda Item 2D, the participation of observers. The list of states and entities that have completed the formalities for their application for observer status at this, the 13th session of the Assembly, is contained in document A/13/1/L.2. Do I take it that the Assembly wishes to grant observer status for the 13th session of the Assembly to these states and entities contained in document A/13/L? I hear no objection, so declared. This concludes our consideration of agenda item 2D. I now invite the Assembly to turn to agenda item 3. Under this agenda item, I will take this opportunity to address the Assembly, and after that, we shall hear the welcome remarks from the United Nations Secretary General and the Minister for Industry and Advanced Technology of the United Emirates and President-designate of COP28, as well as the Director General of IRENA. Excellencies, Director General, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for India to serve as the President of the 13th session of the IRENA Assembly. I would like to personally express my commitment to steer the deliberations on the very important topics of energy transition, as well as other important administrative and institutional issues towards successful outcomes. Let me also express as to how pleased I am, and I'm sure that you will also be equally happy, that we are finally able to meet again in person after so long. I'm looking forward to working with all of you, with each and every member of the Assembly. The developments around the globe in the recent years have sent clear messages about the challenges facing our planet. The current energy landscape, the current economic landscape, is indicative of the challenges which face us. The challenges which confronted us because of conflict, because of COVID, resulted in changing the terms of the discourse radically. It brought to the fore the salient importance of energy security, a topic which had actually fallen into the background in all our discussions regarding energy transition. Now, energy security has emerged as a salient challenge. Now, energy security also embraces access, because we have millions of people without access to energy. It also embraces affordability, as the prices of energy have gone up exponentially around the world, including in developing countries, facing challenges in the current winter. It has also brought this gap, the challenges of COVID, also brought before us a challenge of supply chains, the supply chain disruptions. Now, as we move forward in our discussion regarding energy, including energy security, energy affordability, and energy transition, we'll have to take into account these challenges pertaining to supply chain disruptions. The urgency of energy transition remains. That challenge has not gone away. That challenge still remains. And that is a challenge which we need to face along with other challenges which have emerged. So the terms of discourse will need to be modified somewhat as we discuss, as we go forward and plan for the future of a planet where there is energy access, energy security, and where both energy and affordability, and where both energy access, energy security, and affordability is in the context of clean energy, renewable energy, so that we don't further imperil our one and only planet because of climate change. As I mentioned, it remains a fact that the present pace of energy transition has been somewhat, not somewhat, but has been actually inadequate to achieve the 1.5-degree pathway. And barring some countries, even for achieving a pathway of sub 2 degree, of limiting the temperature increase to sub 2 degrees, that challenge remains facing us. Now that challenge, meeting that challenge will require investments, will require access to technology. And it will require a determination to make these available in order to ensure that our energy challenges are met. When we talk about energy challenges, it can't be in compartments. The energy challenge is a complete challenge, a whole challenge. It cannot be compartmentalized. Excellencies, transitioning to renewables will be at the core of meeting these challenges, because as we have learned in our country, transition to renewables also helps in meeting the challenge of access. We achieved universal access in our country by connecting 29 million homes in 19 months. And a part of this was possible only because of the transition which we have carried out, which we have effected in renewable energy, in our energy capacity. We have 42% of our renewable energy capacity already come from non-fossil fuel sources. If you will recall, at COP21 in Paris, our Prime Minister had pledged that by 2030, 40% of our power generation capacity will come from non-fossil fuel sources. We achieved that target in November 21, 9 years in advance. Today, as I mentioned, my established non-fossil fuel capacity of our country is 177 gigawatts. 177,000 megawatts is our non-fossil fuel capacity already. And it's growing. We have a further 70 gigawatts, that is 70,000 megawatts of renewables under construction. Now, because we achieved our target so far in advance of what we had pledged in our NDCs, in Glasgow, we upped our ambition to state that by 2030, 50% of our capacity will come from non-fossil sources. Now, by 2030, my established capacity will be 820 gigawatts. Right now, the established capacity is 408 gigawatts. In 2030, the established capacity, power generation capacity of India will be 820 gigawatts. That's the rate at which we are growing. In fact, we are growing at a faster rate, so it will be more than what we assessed. In the past couple of months, my energy demand has grown by 12.5%. In the past year, my energy demand has grown by 10.6%. So actually, our earlier estimate that my established energy capacity will be 820 gigawatts by 2030 is rather short of the mark. As we see it, as our economy grows, my energy capacity will have to be 1,000 gigawatts by 2030. And 50% of that is 500 gigawatts. So right now, I have 177 gigawatts established, about 75 gigawatts under construction. That makes it about 245. I'll have to add another 250 gigawatts in the remaining 7 years, which we shall do. Despite the fact that our per capita emissions are very low, they are one-third of the global average. That's another thing regarding which we have upped our ambitions. We had pledged that by 2030, we'll reduce the emissions intensity of our economy by 35% by 2030. So by now, up till now, we've already reduced the emissions intensity of our economy by about 30%. So again, we'll cross that in a year or so. So in Glasgow, we upped our ambition to say that by 2030, we'll reduce the emissions intensity of our economy by 45%. Despite the fact that our per capita emissions are one of the lowest in the world, 1/3 of the global average. So we are carrying forward this transition, and that experience has told us that access also, the problem of access and affordability is also something which can be moderated by transition. But it will require funding, it will require technology for the developing world. That is another thing which I think we need to, as a community of nations, need to keep in mind. That just like COVID, this problem of climate change is not amenable to country-wise solutions. Just like, you could not protect, one country could not protect itself without making sure that the challenge of COVID is beaten everywhere. Similarly, the problem of climate change cannot be solved by one country transitioning or another, or some countries transitioning, leaving out other countries. No. The problems of the carbon dioxide emissions will continue until all countries are able to transition. And all countries will be able to transition only if we help those countries which need help. I mean, we have no problems in attracting investments. So whatever capacity enhancement we are doing, we are getting investments. I mean, every fund in the world is invested in our country. But that is not true of the other developing countries, especially in Africa. Investments are not going there. So we'll have to put in place mechanisms for ensuring, for insurance, for guaranteeing returns on investment so that investments can go to Africa. And these are challenges which we have to meet as a community of nations. Otherwise, energy transition will not happen. So we have also, in our deliberations, we will talk about the global stocktake, which will come up and be discussed in COP28 in Abu Dhabi here. Now, the global stocktake, again, has to be done with a comprehensive perspective. There has to be a comprehensive perspective with which you can do the global stocktake. That perspective must take into account the challenges of energy security, the challenges of affordability, of availability of energy, access to energy, energy security, energy availability, and energy transition taking into account the different stages of development of different countries, the different per capita incomes of different countries. Their ability to carry out transitions depends upon their ability to deploy capital, their ability to access technology. You can't talk about energy, you can't have a comprehensive stocktake without keeping this perspective in mind. So the global stocktake will have to be carried out keeping this perspective in mind. So which country was able to do more? Which country is able to do less because of its circumstances, because of its being at a lower stage of economic development? And so that is again something which will have to be done, otherwise it will not be realistic. Now these are things which we will need to keep in mind. And the global stocktake, as I said, is now being carried out in a totally different context. So the challenges facing us in IRENA are huge. And the challenges facing us in IRENA are actually the challenges facing us as a planet. But these are challenges which we shall have to meet together. And we shall be able to meet these challenges only when we recognize these challenges. Look at these challenges in the face. Say that, yes, these challenges exist. And then work out solutions for that. Denial will not get us anywhere. Denial of reality has never been a solution. It will not, the problem will not go away because of denial. So we'll have to face the reality and we'll have to meet these challenges. And we'll have to prove that as Homo sapiens, as human beings, we are up to it, that we can raise our act to actually meet these challenges as humankind. Thank you. is now with great pleasure that I invite the United Nations Secretary General, His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, for his welcoming remarks.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to greet the 13th session of the Assembly of the International Renewable Energy Agency. As you gather to take stock of the world's energy transition, one clear fact stands out. Our world is still addicted to fossil fuels, with the 1.5-degree goal fast slipping out of reach. Under current policies, we are headed for 2.8 degrees of global warming by the end of the century. The consequences would be devastating. Several parts of our planet would be uninhabitable, and for many, this would be a death sentence. If we are to avert climate catastrophe, renewables are the only credible path forward. Only renewables can safeguard our future, close the energy excess gap, stabilize prices, and ensure energy security. Today, their share in global electricity is about 30%. That must double to over 60% by 2030 and 90% by 2050. And it is possible if we act now. Excellencies, to help get us there, I have put forward a 5-point energy plan for a just transition. First, we must remove intellectual property barriers and treat key renewable technologies, including energy storage, as global public goods. Second, we must diversify and increase access to supply chains for raw materials and components for renewables technologies without degrading our environment. This can help create jobs, millions of green jobs, especially for women and youth in the developing world. Third, decision makers must cut the red tape, fast-track approvals for sustainable projects worldwide, and modernize grids. Fourth, energy subsidies must shift from fossil fuels to clean and affordable energy, and we must support vulnerable groups affected by this transition. And fifth, public and private investments in renewables should triple to at least $4 trillion a year. Excellencies, today most investments in renewables are in the developed world. The price of renewable technologies can be 7 times higher in developing countries. We must all work together to reduce the capital cost for renewables and ensure that financial flows to those who need it most. Multilateral development banks must play their part by investing massively in renewable energy infrastructure, taking on more risks and leveraging private finance. Developed countries must work with credit agencies to scale up green investments in developing countries. And I urge ministers of energy and others to promote ambitious national policies and greater social and economic equity, including by taxing the windfall profits of those exploiting today's energy crisis. Excellencies, I welcome the Just Energy Transition partnerships that have been established to support Vietnam, Indonesia, and South Africa. Such initiatives are a critical first step, but we must go faster and further. This is why I have called for a climate solidarity pact in which all big emitters make an extra effort to reduce emissions this decade and ensure financial and technological support for countries that need it. Together, let's jumpstart the renewables revolution and create a brighter future for all. Thank you.
I would like to thank the United Nations Secretary General for his remarks. It is now with great pleasure that I invite His Excellency Mr. Cassava Rossi, the President of the 77th General Assembly, for his welcoming remarks.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, climate change is one of the most pressing issues of our time. And it is a challenge that has affected and will affect all of us and all of those who come after us. Energy and climate change are intrinsically linked. The message from science is clear. Fossil fuels account for 75% of global greenhouse gas emissions and 90% of all carbon dioxide emissions. So, success in climate protection depends on transition to carbon-free energy use. But the energy transition we have foreseen was a peacetime agenda. How will it work in time of major political confrontations, when energy supplies are turned into a tool of conflict? In the short term, addressing emergencies, there might be setbacks in the transition, and the greenhouse gas emissions will probably rise. But if you look to the investment trends, the long-term impact of the conflict might be the opposite. From solar to wind, wave and geothermal, renewable energy sources are available for every climate. Their use has a potential of strengthening energy sovereignty. We can choose to truly reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, imported or locally produced. We can choose to transition to more sources of energy that will not upset the sensitive balance of our planet. We can choose to ensure that the transition to a renewable energy is equitable. If we are to attempt to reach the goals set out in the Paris Agreement, member states must act without delay. According to the International Energy Agency, renewables in principle could constitute 2/3 of global power generation by 2030. How can we make this a reality? One, by investing in scientific tools of measurement. That includes the creation of a follow-up mechanism to assess where we are making headway and where we lag behind. Two, in order to speed up the transition and make renewable energy a global public good, we must share our knowledge and transfer our technologies. We should work to make the intellectual property rights regime an enabler of energy transition and innovation, not a barrier to it. Three, we ought to bolster partnerships with stakeholders, from academics to civilians, through corporations who have good track records in sustainable energy initiatives. How else will we ever achieve SDG 7 or reach net zero emissions by 2050? Dear friends, we are in a desperate race against time. We need bold, transformative action to curtail climate change. We have the knowledge. We have the means. We should only have the will. Thank you.
I would like to thank the President of the General Assembly for his remarks. It gives me great pleasure to invite His Excellency Dr. Sultan bin Ahmed Al Jaber, the Minister of Industry and Advanced Technology of the United Arab Emirates, and the President Designate for COP28 to deliver the statement to the host country. We have the floor, Excellency.
Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the United Arab Emirates and for the 13th IRENA Assembly. It is a great honor to deliver the UAE's welcoming address on behalf of His Highness Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the UAE Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. Allow me to acknowledge all the delegates who have made it possible for IRENA to become the leading advocate for renewable energy. And allow me to thank the Director General and the entire staff for your efforts in promoting the adoption of renewable energy and clean technologies across the globe. And let me also congratulate His Excellency Raj Kumar Singh on assuming the presidency of this assembly. You will have the UAE's full support in advancing IRENA's mission in this very critical year ahead when the UAE will host COP28. COP28 will be a milestone moment as the world conducts the first global stocktake to assess progress against the goals of the Paris Agreement. But we don't need to wait until the global stocktake to know just how much work there is ahead of us. As we seek to close the gap between ambition and reality, no sector offers as much potential as renewable energy. And never has IRENA's mission been more important than in the crucial years ahead of us. Since its foundation, IRENA has paved the way for the extraordinary growth in renewable energy capacity that we have seen worldwide. IRENA has been at the forefront of this growth, guiding supportive policies and encouraging new technologies that have led to lower costs. Last year, renewables accounted for 81% of all new energy capacity installed. And the sector is now on course to expand more in the next 5 years than over the last 20 years combined. With wind and solar now the most affordable new energy sources, the economic case has already been proven. And that is in no small part thanks to the tireless work and efforts of everyone at this very important organization. Its most critical phase now lies ahead. And that is accelerating project implementation in a very short period of time. Over the next 7 years, we will need to more than triple renewable energy capacity worldwide. The world must move much, much faster than ever before. And IRENA has a critical role to play in leading that global acceleration across all sectors, all regions, and all communities. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, to meet the scale and pace of change we need, IRENA will need to adapt and innovate. The Energy Transition Accelerator Financing Platform, ETAF, is a good example of this. Launched on the sidelines of COP26, ETAF is already helping to target funding for emerging economies. The UAE has already committed $400 million in initial funding to support this platform. Ultimately, the success of this initiative, like ETAF, will be judged by IRENA's ability to bring on new partners and operationalize a robust pipeline of projects that sustain economic growth. The UAE will continue to support IRENA as you continue to challenge yourselves. Distinguished delegates, the UAE has seen the benefits of adopting renewable energy firsthand. 18 years ago, we launched a plan to explore its potential, and the benefits soon became clear and very evident. We have built the world's largest and lowest cost solar plants that are fundamental to our net zero development pathway. We have also invested $50 billion in renewable energy on 6 continents around the world. Through these investments, we have seen that you can be pro-climate and pro-growth. Throughout this journey, IRENA has been a supportive guide and continues to show the way. We aim to leverage IRENA's partnership and support for the benefit of the world at COP28. Working hand in hand with IRENA, the UAE will champion innovation and ambition to transition global energy systems. We will propose transformative solutions that are based on science and fact, backed by policy and endorsed by business and industry. In short, we will leave no stone unturned in the pursuit of inclusive climate progress. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the UAE will continue to be IRENA's closest partner and strongest advocate. I look forward to working even more closely with you to bring about a step change in progress, and I thank you all for being here and for being an advocate of IRENA, and I hope to soon welcome you all to the UAE at COP28 at the Emirates Climate Conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. I now invite the Director General of IRENA, Mr. Francisco La Camara, to provide his welcoming remarks to the Assembly. You have the floor, Director General.
So, Mr. President, Excellencies, Mr. Singh, Minister of Power and New Renewable Energy of India, His Excellencies, Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, Minister of Industry and Advanced Technology of UAE, COP28 President Designate and Chairman of MASDA, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot imagine how nice it is to look at you from here. Some familiar faces, friends, but also new faces. And this makes the difference. I have heard the words of Dr. Sultan. You can sure that IRENA has the capacity to make the difference thanks of all your support. I have the great honor of welcoming you to the 13th session of the IRENA Assembly in our headquarters city of Abu Dhabi. At the outset, allow me to congratulate the President of the 13th session of the Assembly, His Excellency Mr. Singh, Minister of Power and New and Renewable Energy in India. We had good discussion about our shared hopes for this session and the year ahead. And as you know, India will play two important roles, the presidency of IRENA, but also be chairing the G20 this year. I look forward to working together these 2 days and the year ahead, and I would like to congratulate Vice President of Belgium, Indonesia, Vincent and Grenadine, and Zimbabwe. Finally, let me thank the ongoing presidents of El Salvador for their leadership of the 12th session of the Assembly and active support of the agency in 2022. We collaborated closely throughout the year on issues of common interest, such as hosting the second high-level Global Geothermal Alliance conference in El Salvador. I'm especially pleased, after 3 years, I say, we are again meeting in person. Out of IRENA, 168 members, 147 countries and the European Union, 9 states in a session and 3 non-members are participating to this assembly, with 90 represented at the ministerial level. Together with the observer and the private sector, we convene close to 1,800 participants. This large and diverse presence demonstrates the critical role of our agency that plays in international cooperation on energy transition. And the mandate entrusted to ARENA has never been more critical and relevant. The impact of COVID-19 pandemic is lingering, intersecting with multiple challenges, including conflict and climate change, worsening inequalities and fragilities. Energy is the cornerstone of these challenges. Volatile markets, unpredictable supply partners, and soaring prices are impacting countries, communities, and families, with the vulnerable suffering the most. Renewables-based energy transition can be a power force for positive change, and the agenda of this Assembly is shaped with this in mind. With COP28 taking place in our host country, the UAE, we will discuss how to align our action around energy transition priorities to fit into the first global stocktake process that we conclude at COP28 in Dubai later this year. And I will have the chance in my discussing my report to outline some of the engagement we want to have in this context. We will have focused discussion on our ministerial and plenary session on topical issues, such as critical material and project facilitation, as well as strategic conversation on shipping and infrastructure. This session of the Assembly is of particular significance as you will consider the new medium strategy that will enable the agency to continue to be effective and assertive throughout the coming 5 years. We have little time left to tackle climate change and realize the Sustainable Development Agenda. The intersecting crises we face demand concerted global action, grounded in multilateralism, to emerge stronger and more unified in achieving our common goals. And the ARENA Assembly provides a platform to drive a global energy agenda. I firmly believe that your insight, thought, and experience will not only guide the agency work in the coming period, but also convey to audiences around the world that transforming the global energy system is a path that leads to resilience, equality, and prosperity. Grazie a tutti per essere qui. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Sir. This concludes our consideration of agenda item number 3. We'll pause for a few minutes and get the panel ready for the discussions on the world energy transition and the global stocktake.
തരാൻ പറയും
ആരാണ് ബക്കീൻ്റെ
ഒരു